Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
For the Amazing Truth Minute, we'll focus on Colossians chapter 3, verse 1 to 2, and it says, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things." You see, as believers, few things are important than understanding our identity in Christ. When Paul wrote to the Colossians, he told them, "You have been raised with Christ." Colossians 3, verse 1. Paul's words refer to every believer's identification with Christ's death, his burial, and resurrection. Because of our identification with Jesus, we have been granted new life, which provides us with capacity to live differently than we did before. Paul says that since we have been raised with Christ, our minds should be set on things above. Practically speaking, that means we are to think about the things of God. You see, if we aren't intentional about setting our minds on spiritual things, we risk becoming so distracted by the daily demands of our schedule that we don't cultivate our faith life. Paul insists we control our direct thought process in such a way that we are preoccupied with God. And that is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Yep. Welcome back. Today we are just launching. This feels different, man.
Feels different,
Man. Just the relaxing in this room today. I don't even know if we have the energy to deliver.
Because it's a different environment.
It's a different environment, man. It's a different environment. But definitely, man, we need this. We need this. Kenan.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you. People have been complaining.
Well, we've heard your cries. Your prayers have been answered, and I'm back.
You are back. I think I need to disappear for people to complain too.
Yeah. I doubt.
People want to complain.
I doubt.
They don't miss you till you're
Listen, I saw you, they don't even miss you. They just pray that you show up. Hey, listen, viewers, I know you're wondering why you have not been seeing these handsome faces. But you've heard the deep voices behind the cameras and all that stuff. But it's because the previous episodes we have been, working with a generation that's slightly a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. And we understand the importance of just being able to follow rules. Right. If someone is underage, we don't want to put their faces out there.
Yep.
We want to make sure that we protect them. Because we know not all of you are nice. Some of you be commenting stuff down there.
Some of you will be coming after us.
Coming after us,
we
right?
say, we have to play it by the rules. Yeah.
So, but after doing my background check, all these guys were over 18. So we had to come back full circle. And we don't need any introductions, really.
No.
Anybody who has followed us, you don't need any introductions. Of course, in case you're joining us the first time, the guy on the far right is he is Kenan, one of the hosts. We have the main man. There's a reason he sits in the middle, man.
And he has the wider chair.
The wider chair.
Because he has wide-ranging thoughts.
I know. Aizo, man, our brother, our friend. We always enjoy. It's so hard and very rare. to get this guy. It's like some of those animals that are extinct. You really, when you see them once in a blue moon, you're excited. Like, that's ISO.
Today there was an ISO sighting.
ISO sighting, right? So we're glad to have
man.
ISO back
And
here.
we've had
love
ISO
you
twice
guys.
in a
Twice.
year. That's a
We're already
I don't know
doing
what we
well.
are doing. We are doing something right.
Right. But I want to
I love you
celebrate.
guys,
I want to
man.
celebrate and say, for those of you, Aizo has done a podcast with us in the past. Powerful, one of the most impactful, stories that he has shared. We want to continue celebrating his journey, from grass to grace. His journey through struggle with alcohol. His journey through hitting the rock bottom, and here he is today. He is today redeemed, reformed, revived, given a second chance, and is sailing through it. So, Aizo, always a pleasure to see you, man.
Thank you.
One thing I usually ask, and I think he will confess that every time I talk to Aizo, I ask him, Aizo, are you sober?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, every time.
And what is your answer?
Yes.
Yes.
This is, and we want to say this to say that, we have not arrived, It's a journey.
It's a work in progress.
But we want to celebrate. Want to celebrate the milestone. So, Aizo, man.
Aizo has been sober how long? 6 years?
6 years now.
Yep.
Yeah, 6 years on March 8th.
Keep celebrating. We just passed. We're going to start doing a
So
podcast every March 8th.
Yeah,
March 8th, yeah.
March 8th. This you even called me
Yeah,
around the same
around the
time.
same time,
Yes.
Yeah.
He did. Ezzy needs to work on his
It is-
memory.
He did. I've improved.
I've exposed him.
I've
I've
improved.
exposed
yeah.
him.
But anyways, hey viewers, today we're gathered here. Just want to have, a meditational talk. Meditational talk. Many a times we just talk, we just present, we just come here and share. But we want to just take time and step back and meditate.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen,
Yes.
Yeah.
gotta start this with a question for you all. I gotta start a question.
And disclaimer: Izzy never prepares us for this question.
Yes. Yes.
I don't need to prepare you guys, But this is a meditational. Like really, it's a question that gets to the core of the heart. Like really, just think about it. What comes out of you when you are when life squeezes you? First, you gotta process what squeezing looks like for you. And when life really squeezes you, what comes out of your life? Viewers, is meditational. Want you to think about that question too.
Wow, that's deep.
Yes.
That's deep. Isaiah, why don't you start? Man with wide-ranging thoughts. Why don't you start?
What?
Yeah, this might be the time that the man with wide-ranging thoughts has very short ones, but I will answer to that. When my back is against the wall, I step back. I've learned. Let me use the words I've learned, because they're not natural. You go through it and then you learn. For me, like right now, we were actually just speaking about this a few minutes ago, is I have to know when to let go. And when my back is really honestly against the wall, I've learned to just let go, be like, okay, I need this one here. It's beyond me. Because when I don't, I start fighting, I lose. When you lose, I lose hope. I lose strength. I lose. Everything that comes when you fight and your back is against the wall is losing.
Okay, you let go.
I let go.
Well, for me, I used to withdraw a lot. I used to just withdraw and don't face it, don't talk to anybody. When life is just, I just withdraw to my cocoon. But then over the years, I learned that the more I withdraw, postponing a problem is not solving it.
Yes.
So I cultivated the attitude of being optimistic. So I'm very optimistic, and I always go with the mantra of it's gonna be better tomorrow. Nothing is permanent. So I think my optimism helps me to move through that squeeze in life, And I think that's what I always carry. I always bring, that if, and I know for me personally, if I don't think about it like that, that it's gonna be better tomorrow, I'll wake up again tomorrow and withdraw. And yeah, so stay optimistic. That's how that's the what is brought out when life squeezes me. Ezra.
You
What
guys, you guys are very well put together.
No,
You are all trying not to
Hey,
go
so
deep.
there's
This is
cameras.
real talk, real life, guys.
real talk, real life.
This is real talk, real life,
it's
man.
iceberg.
You're
Izzy.
all
That's-
giving this the
Listen.
classic answers.
Listen, Izzy,
You know.
that's the classic answer. Now we have a long podcast. We're about to go deep.
Let me say what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing.
Izzy, yeah.
I'm gonna come to that.
Okay,
I know you're
yeah.
gonna throw it back
Yeah,
to
we
me.
are gonna throw
I
it back
know.
to you.
I know.
But go ahead. Reflect.
But you know what I'm hearing is conflict resolution or dealing with conflict is something that we still struggle with.
Yeah.
It's something that when I ask when you're pushed to the back of your end, to the back of the wall, and what comes out of you? What comes out of you is really who you are. This is when your true colors come out. So the question I'm asking really, what's your true colors? And you guys are like, let go, let God. Optimism. Bro, I appreciate all that. I appreciate all that. But let me be honest on my end. I'm gonna use specific examples for me. Let me go 6 feet under. You guys don't want to go 6 feet under. I've grown and been raised in a family where we are naturally loud.
Yes.
Naturally loud. So then my wife is very mellow,
Hello, yeah.
very laid back, very quiet. I never used to understand that. I think now I'm becoming wiser and I'm starting to understand that. So what I learned and I discovered is that I never knew how to speak without raising my voice. So when I'm pushed to the wall, I raise my voice. Really raise my voice. When I raise my voice, it is an indication that there's a quote. It's an anonymous quote that really, when I read it, it just hit home. It says this: people don't yell because they are physically far from each other. They yell because their hearts are far from each other. So I started asking myself, do I yell because of that moment? For whatever reason, my heart is far away from my wife or whoever I'm talking with. Like I'm not feeling them, I'm not vibing them, I'm not understanding them. So when I'm pushed to the wall, I yell. So when I realized that's not the right thing, I started shutting down. Now it's even became, over the past few months, past few years, became so bad that I can shut down for weeks. And then I could feel the tension. So I've been asking myself, how come I never learned to deal with this situation I'm pushed to the wall? And I think that's why we hear cases like suicide. When someone is pushed to the wall, because they never learned how to cope and deal with the situation. The easy way out is to take their life. All that. So I'm going to reframe the question. What do you do when you're pushed to the back of the wall?
I'll go. I think, not I think. I go back to, because we're a work in progress, and I think for me, I really had a bad temper, and mine wasn't. It wasn't a form of. It was a form of defense. So, I grew up in a place where you either had to fend for yourself or fight, and for me, the temper was a way of defending myself. So I carried this over the years, and it was only maybe right before maybe I got married that I realized that temper doesn't. But I used to, when I'm pushed to the wall, my temper used to go very high, and to a point where it will get physical. So, And again, that was my go-to, and it was a defense mechanism. But more so, coming to think of it, someone told me it was really not a defense mechanism, but when you raise your voice or raise your temper, when my temper was high, I was now the aggressor, right? So it switches from being the victim, quote unquote, to now being the aggressor. So hearing those words made me change how I deal with the squeeze of life. But yeah, that was me. I used to my temper, I go anger, it could be breaking things and stuff like that. Damn, Ezra, man, this is a therapy session.
Nice.
I said it's a meditational session, man. We're going to
but-
meditate. We're going to go back to our childhood. Let's process those things because I think who we are today is a sum total of our environment, of everything we've gone through, we've come through. And I think the people who just sit and look at you as a therapist, right? Look at this guy who's seen it all. Like, look at this guy who's a pastor, who's a preacher, and think that we got it all together.
Right.
And they can't relate. They can't come to that story. There's so many people who are struggling.
Yeah.
So how do we unpack all that? So
And before Izo goes, I think what the one constant in life is the wall. The wall will always be
the
there.
wall will always be
The
there.
wall- how far you are from the wall depends on how
You handle
where you are in your work in progress.
Yeah,
But the wall will always be there.
there.
And one thing too that, like you said, the put together part. They say every good therapist needs a good therapist, and I'll say the same for every good nurse needs a good nurse. Every
nurse,
good
yes.
whatever they need.
Yeah.
So we are all a work in progress. So yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So what I do, I have a bad habit of keeping quiet.
Shut down.
I totally shut down, and to a point where, do you know when you shut down until you are living in your own world, accepting the reality outside, but processing it in your own world. I think that takes you to a place where you are making executive decisions without interruption. So then it makes me feel like, okay, I am not that far much pushed. Because I don't want to feel like I'm against the wall, because like every person, when your back is against the wall, there's a degree of anger in there.
Yeah.
Because you're blaming something or someone for the reason, for the basis of your situation.
Yeah.
So I do withdraw. I'm not gonna lie, I do that, and even now, but it has gotten much better. I used to turn off my phone.
You turn off when you just cut
do.
everybody off.
Yes, just turn it off.
Nobody can reach you.
Nobody can reach me. 6 years ago, people can tell you they used to not reach me for 3-4 weeks at a time.
Fine. What are you doing during that for 3 weeks time? Like, what are you doing at that time?
Building anger. Because every day you find a reason. When you're living in your own world, you find a reason why you shouldn't deal with it to begin with. And then you find somebody else culpable, or you feel betrayed. Most of the times that when our backs are against the wall, we feel betrayed, even in situations that we created our own self. Yeah. So there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of misconception of reality. Because many times when I've come to have conversations with people, I find myself to have been the one who saw it or took it the wrong way. And later on, you also come to realize that you haven't been having conversations with God as you were busy building and laying the bricks, foundations in your own world. And yeah, so for me, there's anger, there's withdrawal, and I start revisiting. The worst part is I start revisiting my past bad experiences. I relive, not even revisiting.
You relive those moments.
I relive my past moments. Now, I don't let it get there, because once I start reliving my past moments, it's a gateway to opening pain that I only dealt with. The way I dealt with things 8 years ago is getting high and drunk. So when I start feeling that kind of pain, my mind starts to tell me, there's a only way. There's a way we deal with this. Then I'm like, whoa. When I'm like, that's when I withdraw. It's like, this is when I give up. That's when I give up, and I'm like, I need a better solution. So I think I skipped a big part of my answer, and then I gave you the conclusion.
Because you all are trying to be diplomatic here.
Yes.
You all trying to, like,
Yes.
But those are they're
Yes.
true. They're true.
Let's not justify,
true
brethren,
representation,
friends. Let's not justify. Let's keep. But in all honesty, I think that I think we always like talking about the good character behaviors. We know we have problems, challenges, struggles. But how often do we take time to think why we even got there? How we even got there? You hear people like, oh yeah, broke up with my girlfriend, or we divorced. And you ask them why. And they have like some small reasons. They're like, that doesn't add up. They looked at you that way.
Yeah.
But really it's because they've never processed. There's something deeper.
Yes.
But that's the, so all that. So I think it's, so now let's go back. We've unpacked ourselves. We've unpacked ourselves, like some of those things.
I want to say something about, from what I heard, I think I don't know how true it is for you, Ezra.
Yeah.
Because it's true for me. When our backs are always when my back is always against the wall, I always try to find blame.
Yeah.
But I never look internally.
You don't do an
No,
introspective.
so I don't know about you guys. Do you ever feel like there's always someone that's responsible for your anger?
Yeah.
Someone is always responsible for your misery, right? Do you guys
Yes.
have that?
The build-up of anger comes because I think Kenan set me up, and Ezi didn't help because he should have warned me about the setup.
Yeah.
So in just that sentence, you found two people to be angry with.
Right.
And then, you found two people to be angry with. And funny enough, we were having this conversation with my friends, and then I was like, hey, when is the last time we asked ourselves, how did we get here? Like, wherever it is, even at work. I was actually talking to another young nurse, and can I share that experience real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
please,
Yeah.
So I was talking to another young nurse who was telling me about the experiences that he was having at work, and it sounded like they were picking on him. Okay, and that happens in every field, wherever you do. Sometimes when you are the new guy, you get picked on. It's it's the way you get initiated, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I spoke with him and I asked him, hey, as you don't just quit your job. First of all, yes, you should. That is professional advice. If an environment is not working for you, walk away. There's other environments. I told him, though, when you go home, I want you to, not tonight, the following day, ask yourself, how did you get to a position or where you were being easily attacked? If you were playing football, American football, it will be running up the middle. When you're running up the middle, you're going to get tackled.
Vulnerable, yeah.
You're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or when you're up in the air trying to catch a ball, your whole body is exposed.
Yeah.
You are defenseless. And I asked him, I want you to go think, because that's what I do when any situation doesn't work for me. After I've gone through my withdrawal, my anger, my blame, my tears, or my just, I do this comfort eating. I know my body doesn't look like it, but I do eat. I do. I go through the fast food and a big chocolate brownie. I told him that ask yourself, because that is the problem. Because from listening to you, I can tell you a few things, but I don't want those to come from me. Yeah. Ask yourself, how did I become to a point where my coworkers are easily blaming me?
How did you get here?
There's something.
How did you get there?
And I think it's good to normalize when you're succeeding or failing. How did I get to this success? How did I get to this failure? How did I get? If you don't ask yourself those questions, you are likely not going to grow. Let me throw in another perspective here. How do you know that you're in a toxic situation? Like, how do you know? Like, there's somebody. Let me say, maybe let me answer this. There's a day I was so resentful. Like, I had woken up in the morning and I had been resenting and withdrawing,
Yes.
and there's this situation I needed to deal with, but I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. So as I'm sitting through all that, somebody sent me a text. And this text, I'll never delete it from my phone. Really, really helpful. Say this. Listen, long after you think you've forgiven someone, you can still harbor hard feelings. Some indicators that you still have work to do are you keep thinking about the person who hurt you and you become resentful. So you still constantly think about that person. And then it goes, you avoid them. You rehearse the incident mentally and in converse. And guess what I was doing that morning? I was actually rehearsing how I'm going to have that conversation. I was actually in the midst of saying, they did this was wrong. I'm going to confront it. This is what I'm going to say. This is how I'm going to say. And in there what I was doing? Also creating some stories that were not true, just to justify my whole story, right? Like my whole energy, my being mentally, emotionally, physically. It's early in the morning. I've not even done anything. Like, that's where my energy is, and that's the moment I realized, okay, I am in a very bad shape, very bad place, and I need to get out of this state and out of this place. So, what are some of you asked the question? I'm reacting to this, Kenan, because you asked him the question of, do you find yourself thinking? Well, I think that was the question you asked, right? You find yourself thinking about blaming the other person and so forth. So yeah, I think I found myself in the situation where I blame the other person. I rehearse the wrongs that were done to me. I blindside myself with one side of the story. I don't think the other side of the story. And I justify how well or how good of a person I am and all that. So, yeah, I'm with you, Kenan. I think we're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, because I think we always want to look good in every situation. We always want to be the ones who look good, even in conflict, even in marriage. When you have a confrontation, you always you always want to be the one that's always right.
Yeah.
But in the real sense, that causes more harm than good. So I think, I've had, even at work, at school, I've had you have a conflict with someone, but then when it's time for you to resolve, or even if it's not time for you to resolve, I'm sitting there and I'm in my misery. I'm rehearsing that. I'm talking about it.
And maybe the other person doesn't even know. Like, they're having a good time, a life of their time. You're there.
In the morning, I didn't even sleep, but I'm tossing and turning, thinking about this thing. But then that does just more harm than good.
So let me ask, gentlemen, would you consider yourselves as people who are comfortable with conflict?
No, not. I hate conflict.
You hate conflict? Is conflict a bad thing?
It brings the worst out of me.
So generally, but is it a bad thing generally?
No. In books, it's not a bad thing, because I think conflict sharpens relationships. And I think someone say that if you see yourself in any sort of relationship and there's no conflict, then you should be worried. Because conflict, or conflict disagreements, it sharpens love. So there has to be love for there to be conflict.
Okay.
So
you're getting deep on us. Okay, philosopher.
there has to be love too, because I have to really, if I don't fight with you, quote unquote, I really don't have much care for you, right? I would care for you enough to fight with you,
fight for you and fight with you.
Yes. So conflict is necessary, but for me personally, it doesn't bring out the best in me.
So conflict is not a bad thing. You just need to work on how to deal with it.
With conflict.
Okay. So what's your take? Is conflict a good thing? And how do you...
Is conflict the same thing as challenge?
No.
That's different. For me, I would say conflict, it's a good thing. But I don't know if we handle it correctly most of the time.
Uh-huh.
Like most of the time, more than not, you know. Like maybe if you're a seasoned veteran, you handle 50 to 60% of your conflict correctly. I don't know, 40 to 60.
I don't know where the statistic came from, but
This is a personal one.
Well, yeah.
This is a personal one. Don't quote me. Well, if you do, just say according to Isaiah.
according to
only.
Isaiah, yeah.
According to Isaiah.
Don't say
only.
statistically it has been proven.
No,
but
no, 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 no.
Isaiah-
Because
But yeah.
for me, when I try to avoid conflict,
Uh-huh.
because I'm a very emotional person. I can tell you that. I can admit that here on air that I'm very emotional person. And when you are a very emotional person, you get to a point where you develop in your adulthood, you develop passive anger. It is that anger that can be expressed even in the acts of love, but with the wrong motive.
it's anger on reserve.
Yes. Yes,
just there, right?
like if I don't want to deal with someone, I will be very nice, just knowing in my head it's gonna be a very long time before I talk to you again. Like we could be having a conversation like this, and you would not feel what I'm thinking in deep down inside of me.
Okay.
But then I would carry on from there, as you said, and keep rehearsing the things in my head and keep, that is, and that anger just stays there. And then on one day that all these things come together, and I just have a toxic state of mind. I don't know. It's I'm still learning how to handle conflict.
They're still learning how to handle conflict.
Yes.
So how do you call, and this is maybe it could be off, do you call like the conflict in the situation in Ukraine a conflict?
I think there's levels to conflict,
Right.
but I want to stay practical. Low level, man. We came to ask Uncle Biden right now, and you know, we cannot get into all that. But I think in conflict in the past, I think viewers, the reason why we're having this conversation is, I think most of us, because we've never learned how to deal with conflict, it is reflecting in our relationships with our children, relationship with our spouses, relationships at work, relationships at school, and you're seeing a lot of broken relationships because it's either apparent because they've never known how to handle conflict, they will almost abuse the child, or if they've never learned how to address conflict, they will never chastise a child, because they don't want to deal and be the offender, to that child, offend the child, right? Or you are in a marriage relationship, or you are in a friendship, and you're in a toxic friendship relationship, but you're still hanging in there because you don't know how to address the conflicts that are coming there. So we are seeing people who are miserable, but putting a show of good friendship. Miserable, but putting a show of good couples, by dressing matching clothes and all that kind of stuff. Miserable. And the reality is that if we don't get to have this conversation, really, we're a bunch of miserable people gathered together. And we make the world a very sad state and sad affair. So I think conflict, in my opinion, is one of the things that is the biggest indicator of how well you are as a person. When you're pushed into the wall, what comes out of you? When conflict ensues, what comes out of you?
So Ezra, so my statement would be the opposite, right? This is just a question for my education. Then, when someone says just really that conflict doesn't bring the best out of them. So from what you're saying is conflict should actually bring the best out of you.
Should, ideally, if handled well. If handled well. But it can also mess you up big time. And I think the biggest problem is people in power use their power. Instead of solving conflict like as human beings, use that power to abuse it, and then you just dictate what should be done. So there's a fear relationship rather than, So, I mean, let me frame this question differently. I was in a setting, and in this setting that I was in, we were learning about, I don't think it was communication or something like that. And the coach said something that caught my mind. He said that, when in a stress or conflict situation, they used 4 Fs. You either fight, you either flight, which is flee, or you freeze, or you feed, or you fornicate. I know. The fourth one called me like, or fornicate. The 4, 1, 2, 3, the 5 Fs when you're in a situation.
Wow.
So this is real talk.
Okay.
This is real talk. I'm about to ask, do you deal with the fifth one? But generally, what would you say is your style of dealing with conflict? Is it fighting? Do you flee? Do you freeze? Do you overfeed? Or do you fornicate? And it could be a combination of those.
It's a combination for me. It's a combination. There are times that I fight if I feel like I am, what's the word? When you feel like, hey, this is mine, I deserve this. Or if I feel like I'm justified.
Mm-hmm.
If I honestly, truly, and feel like I'm justified, that's what I mean by I try not to let my emotions run deep because I'm very passionate.
Mm.
Once if I emotionally grab onto something, it becomes a reality for me. So then I'll fight. If I feel like this is not worthy it, I will run away.
Okay.
Or I am not ready for this, or this is bigger than me,
Mm-hmm.
I run away. When you feel like, okay, I'm big enough for this, in any shape or form, socially, mentally, physically, financially, or emotionally, you want to flex any of that muscle in that conflict.
So let's talk about practically running away.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Withdrawals.
Yeah.
I don't talk to you.
You don't talk to me.
I don't. When I see you, I literally just.
Switch, go different direction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to deal with that conflict at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just flee from it.
Can substance abuse be one of the ways of running away?
That's the most common way of fleeing.
But,
Because you get to run away without running away. Because it physically and mentally takes you out of the situation.
Uh-huh. So you feel you're high, you forget the problem, you forget the situation, you feel that you're good, you go into another world
Yes.
until you come back to your senses.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, I wanted to add to that. For me, it's a process, and I go through all of those. Not all of those 5, but I'll pick 3
All
that
of those
I'll
5.
pick 3 that I
My
that I
friends,
go.
it is okay, man. This is real talk.
I'll pick
I know
3.
you're afraid of the last one.
I'll pick 3 that I no.
Yeah.
But for me, when I perceive a threat or I see a conflict, I freeze. Because I'm like, Ezra, really, did you just say that to me, or did you just hit me? Like that. I'm like,
like a Will Smith.
right? Yeah, because it was like,
Chris
whoa,
Yeah.
I just got smacked.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
me. I'm like, Ezra, did you just say that to me? And then I flee. For me, the fleeing is I go now and sit because I stutter. When we are talking, I can't really. When you give words,
So you get angry.
I get angry,
and
and
then
I
you
start
can't even
stuttering.
speak.
Yeah. So the realization that Ezra, did you just say that to me? Anger comes in, but when I'm angry, I stutter a lot, so I cannot even put a sentence together. So that for me is a cue to do what?
To step out.
So I flee. I go there and process. All those words that I wanted to say, they come to me now. I should have said this to Ezra. I should have said this, So then I come back and fight. Right? So it could be 3 days down the line. I say, Ezra, manze, what you did to me, what you said to me was not good. But I want to now bring out the words that I. So now over the years, I've changed the fight into I like to resolve things. I'm a big resolver. I don't like conflict, and when there is one, I always try to resolve it.
Okay.
So that's for me is the process of I kind of pick on all three.
I am so happy because you support a team that loses. I don't know how you deal with that conflict all the time. You
I can't flame. There's highlights everywhere.
He's perfected conflict.
perfecting the art of
Yeah.
dealing with that.
So,
I think that more and more as we engage with young people,
but Ezzy, what about you? What's your
Well,
what
what
is on toes with
what
me.
how do you deal
How
with
do you
your
deal-
Fs? What are
yeah.
your Fs?
yes?
I think I've had phases of all of them. This is real talk. We're keeping on. I've had phases of all of them.
Of all of them, okay.
I've had phases of where I fight. I have had phases where I flee. And also it's contextualized. There are places where, man, I mean, even if you fight back, are you going to fight back Uncle Sam?
Right.
You just
that.
realize this fight I can't even fight, man. It's not worth it, right? So I'm so angry. I'm so frustrated. I'm so mad with that. And then culture too plays a role. Let's be honest, man. There've been moments where, because culture teaches us respect your elders, respect, all of that. The moments you feel like I should fight back, but I don't know how to fight back because speaking to my parent might be deemed disrespectful. Just even being in leadership as a young person, that is something I still continue struggling with because I could be having something to say, but I'm wrestling because it might be seen as, I'm being disrespectful. So am I shut down and freeze in that moment because culture, because status and all that stuff. So I've had phases of all of them that I've gone through. Be honest with you, BC, before Christ, everything was open.
Yeah.
Everything was open to me. It's like, you do what you gotta do. As long as it gives you temporal joy and stuff, all that stuff. We've had all that phases. So I think that all of us as human, that's why these are scientific actually response that have been studied. All of us actually deal with issues like that. And I think what I realize is that the problems we are seeing, the increase in cases of suicide that we're seeing, the pains that people are dealing with up here, there's a lot of people who are frozen in their pain. There's a lot of people who are listening and are going to be watching us. But really, if they sit down and meditate and think their state of being, like we're either fleeing from something or we're either fighting a situation or we're either eating a lot and saying, yeah, I'm eating healthy nowadays, 3 meals a day. No. It's not because you're trying to eat healthy. It's because there's a situation that you need to deal with, and this is the way you're dealing with. It's not all time, all that stuff, right? There are people where they become, because again, scientifically, they say the fornicate part, I know we laughed about it, it gives you a feeling of release, like what alcohol does to you or substance abuse does to you in that very moment. That's why you see a lot of couples, sometimes you hear couples when they have conflict, they end up having sex. They have not addressed the situation, the problem, but they think, and is that even sex? Because what is sex in itself? It should be like a happy moment that is full emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all context. But this has nothing to do with spiritual, emotional, and stuff. This is just kind of releasing that anger in the context of that. So that is where fornication comes in there, in that state. Instant gratification. Right, so I think we all human beings get to deal with that. So the question that I want the listeners, or we want the listeners, the viewers, as we just recount our situation, we're meditating is, man, we are all agreeing that we have a problem. We have a problem, and we are representative of society. How do we get out of this situation? Now, that will be part 2. How do we build on that? But for now, like really, what are some of the dire situations after taking this conversation, just in light of it, just that stands out, that comes out to you? Situation, somebody you've dealt with, circumstance, that came to you. let me begin this because I have one in mind. Recently, I was talking to some young kids, young people, and I recommended the book Think Big by Ben Carson. Gifted Hand also wrote that. And I was watching, if you watch that movie carefully, you see, even as much as he was very talented, intellectual, fast black surgeon to separate cordon, he had an anger issue to a point that he took a knife and, luckily it hit the belt of that young man. But today we will not be talking of Ben Carson as the most gifted man because of that anger issue that he had. Like his response was fight. So if we don't deal with these issues, we might not realize the full potentials. Not everybody will be lucky like Ben Carson. Somebody else will literally actually kill someone, and now your entire trajectory, because you've never dealt with your anger, you've never dealt with the conflict that you're dealing with, you've always had instant gratification, and that's how you've gotten it. So Ben Carson got me thinking, I was like, man, it was a split second between Ben Carson, the neurosurgeon, and Ben Carson, the other black man in jail.
And it's interesting, as when you say that, because we're in a country where I feel like most of us are holding on to a lot of anger. And if we had the opportunity to act on that anger, almost all of us will be in jail.
Yeah.
So the system in this country is making people to really hold on to that anger, or actually saving a lot of lives. But I know in places where the rules are not really followed, or the rules are not, they're lax, we've seen a lot of people taking that anger and actually implementing it to the most negative way, killing
Acting
people.
out, yeah.
If it's substance abuse, to the point of even killing people. So I think when it say they're holding the four winds, I think this country is holding the four winds, figuratively speaking. That I think if everything was let go, the passive anger, the anger on reserve that people have, would really take a lot of lives. I feel like we, as in this country, people are holding on to a lot of anger.
Let me ask Aizo a question. Aizo, you say to you when you deal with issues, like you will cut off people.
Yeah.
Like you would just go 3 weeks, 4 weeks, your phone is off, is turned off and stuff. Like there's someone who's listening and they have this pain they've carried for years. What do you think the damaging effects of that, like literally, like in the long run are?
I think for me, it's
Or let me better frame it.
Yeah.
When you think about your journey that you shared in the past,
yeah.
do you think that way of dealing with issue and all that contributed to even your substance abuse or something?
Yes, definitely, because it leads into depression, and it also leads into anytime you are isolated, I think you lose touch of reality. You don't process things as you don't process the life as it is, and it's very it's a way of just watering anger. If there's such a thing. If you want anger to multiply, keep it to yourself. Once you keep something to yourself, you become the master of your domain. And there is no master who is the small guy or the servant. You want to yes, you want to be big. So your anger becomes big. And what you don't know is your depression becomes big too. So you're very low, but with a very high attitude, confusion.
So
And to add to that, when you're in that dark moment where when you feel like you have a sense of control, like you're controlling it, but you're really not.
Yep.
It's actually controlling you.
and which is why you see someone in a split second, they make a decision that will change the trajectory of their life forever.
Yeah.
Because they could not control that situation. That situation actually controlled them. There are people sitting behind bars now for a split. That's not who they are.
No.
In totality of their life, that is not who they are.
Yeah.
But it was a split second of a decision that they made that changed the entire trajectory of their life. So, to Kenan's point, it just takes control over you rather than just like alcohol takes control of your life or any substance or all that. So will I be fair, Kenan, if I say that maybe some of even the anxieties, the depressions, the situations, the mental health challenges people have, could it be unresolved resentment that is just built into all that?
It could be. It could be.
And so there's medication, you're going psychiatrist, you're doing this, but there are things deep down your heart that you've never reconciled.
If even and a good psychiatrist, a good doctor will tell you, Dr. Karen will tell you that once you resolve the immediate thing that needs to be resolved, the immediate symptoms, if it's depression, the suicidality and all that, you still have to process that internally, those internal things. And that's where therapy comes in. That's why spirituality comes in. That's why those positive coping mechanisms come in. Because I think if you don't resolve them, that's why we see when someone, and as you know this, that most of the people we know of, we've served or
worked with and supported.
They say that when, even in my day job, they say that once they stopped the medications, once they stopped that process of the therapeutic process, then it got worse because it really hadn't resolved the internal things, the things that caused that trauma in the first place. So yeah, you have to at one point you have to deal with those
deep-rooted
the cause.
I think piggybacking on off of what you just said, sharing my experience is in 2000. I just noticed right now in 2016 when I became sober, I went back and some of the things that all of the things that I had to deal with began in 2002. How many years back?
Yeah, that's 14 years ago.
Yes. I went back because the identity crisis, where did it begin?
In 2002.
Yes. And isolation from family and friends or the general, public or on my norm, it began then. Because if I could run away from everybody else, then I was living my own life. If I could close out, socializing with everybody else and just be by myself, I was controlling that. I could be myself, quote unquote. So those are habits that were picked up that got deeper and deeper. And then I found out that I could be by myself under the influence of something. I could be by myself and push everybody out. I could be angry and then by myself under the influence of something, I have found some sort of immediate gratification. And we carry these things.
Yep.
Yes, the decisions that some people behind bars or who have done regretful things, like all of us, not some, all of us, were split second. But the road leading up to that split second decision begins way down the hill. By the time you get to the top of the hill and you topple, you've walked for that road. Like passive anger, you've walked on it for a very long time. I had a conflict with a family member, a very, very long-standing one. It was a standoff. And it wasn't until I came to the realization that, hey, this person might not be here anymore. Just like we have lost one of ours, then maybe why don't we take this chance to resolve it? Or if we cannot come to a resolution, why don't we then let go the resentment at least? Then a logical resolution can come later.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, just like that, an hour is flown by.
Oh, man.
We're just processing, man. Today's meditational. As you can notice, viewers, we're not laughing a lot today. This is serious stuff, right? We're trying to take time to really listen to our inner person.
And this is for ourselves.
Channel ourselves, the inner, and it is for ourselves, but we invite you to join us in channeling that, because you could be building, as Isaiah is saying, you could be building into something that will just take a split second. You know, the anger that your grudge that you're holding on to, the pain that you haven't processed, all that. The next episode, we're going to be talking about, can this be handed down? Can it be handed down generationally? And what does that look like and what does that do? So, gentlemen, I think one thing we can all agree is that there's work that needs to be done. There's need of more moments like these where we're not just going, and where we're just actually stepping back and looking at life and processing through those things. How did we get here? And I just want to, say this. Some people process things differently. Some will develop unhealthy coping mechanisms, but some will be busy doing everything that seems right. For me, it'll be church. For me, it'll be volunteering in the community. But really, that's me running away from the problems. So let us normalize sitting like this and having real conversations. I think it's easier for us as brothers. Wait until the ladies come into the thing with our wives. It's like, I know you very well, right? Yeah, what do you say? But all in all, we love you all. We just want to get there. So any closing shots as we finish this podcast? Anything, gentlemen, before we finish this?
I'll go and then I'll let the wise man here go. But anyway, on a serious note, I think we started by saying when you're pushed to the wall. And we've agreed that the wall is a constant. So what is that? What does your wall look like and how far are you from your wall? So look at how far you are from the wall, or even if you're if you're far away from the wall, keep doing those positive things. Not running away from the wall. If it's a problem that's on the wall, don't run away from it. Deal with it. And if you're on the wall, you're close to the wall, and you're pushed to the wall, there is help out there. Don't let us lose you because you're close to the wall. There's more ways and more people that can yank you or push you gently away from the wall. So reach out to someone, reach out to us. If that wall is unbearable, there's always help. Yeah.
That's very important for you to highlight that. For me, I want to say that we are all a work in progress. All three of us here, we are just a reflection of what's going on out there. There is someone and there is a place where we can express ourselves, where we can learn how to deal with conflict, where we have resources on how to deal with conflict that is going in between us, amongst us, and just like Kenan says, and I don't want to, stray away from what he says, is like let us use what we have because it's there. Even when you don't see it, trust me, it's there because I lived to say that it's there.
Awesome. We are going to be talking about how to navigate difficult conversations in your life. This is episode 1. We just wanted to start by just anchoring ourselves and saying, man, we first of all have to pull back, reflect, think, then we can pick it up from there. Thank you all for tuning. Thank you all for joining. Like, subscribe, follow, and make sure you don't miss the next episode as this gentleman will be taking it to part 2. That has been our time here at Amazing Truth Ministries.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.